I was just saying, I haven't really read any Carl Stevens, and you were talking about how his work is photo referenced. You were saying,
oh yeah, so I think it's photo reference. I think he takes pictures of. Anyway, Carl Stevens I think is Boston local, or at least he was at the time he was making a lot of these.
I mean, the drawings are insane.
They're amazing. I think he's an incredible artist, and I think there's a way. The thing that he's pursuing with photo reference, I think, is really interesting. It's not like a lazy kind of like stagey thing. I think it's more like in an effort to actually document kind of how people move and these real experiences. And I think in terms of Autobio, it does a really incredible job of creating like verisimilitude to the experience.
You were saying like he like normally photo reference isn't like the highest on your list, but that you think he's funny, and so he maybe that's part of it. I think it's like because a lot of these have this kind of gag strip structure, right?
And they are really funny, and I think that like contrast of this sort of Saturday cartoon, like not Saturday cartoon, that Sunday like comic strip silliness, contrasted with this like hyper realistic style,
super serious drawing. Right?
You wouldn't think it would work, but to have someone with this like pontificating look on their face, thinking of something like totally silly and goofy, is to me actually really funny.
I like how there's a movement between black and white and color, which I think is done pretty
he's also
in an interesting way.
He's an astonishing painter. Like he works in a number of different mediums, and I think it's just like really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, this looks like fine art, right? Mm-hmm. Or like someone from a fine art background, and then we go to like this
amazing Garfield strip. Yeah, and he's done a few comics too.
There's something else here by him, right?
So I guess let's clear this up.
I kind of like it as a background.
Oh, right.
But yeah, but whatever.
This was the first thing. Nice. This was the first thing of his I picked up. 2008. I got this, I guess.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Maybe I got this at Mocha.
It's like vintage now.
Mocha or something.
Which Mocha? Like was
Armory,
it the Armory
Mocha?
Yeah. Okay.
I think this was, or actually no, there's an earlier book over there too. But anyway, I like this book a lot because it is that balance of like, there are these still moments that are captured in like highly rendered watercolor and oil paint and stuff like that, and then there are these comic strips of like more daily life, slice of life kind of things.
So much cross hatching.
There's so much cross hatching, but it's amazing. And I think it just works, like you never see this sort of...
It's hyper realistic.
Yeah, almost this is like engraving kind of style of realism mixed with these like, classic kind of like Popeye style word balloons or something. Like there's a thing that works to me just like so well in all of this.
And I mean in 2008, definitely kind of experimenting with the form too.
Yeah, for sure. And so a lot of this was in a newspaper, a kind of alternative newspaper in Boston area. And I just really enjoyed following his like exploits. He's like, meeting girls and dating and meeting these kind of weirdos and this sort of just like 20s life. But it's been really interesting to watch. He still does comics like this kind of, and as he gets older, like you get to see him kind of grow up and move into these different areas. And so it's like tracking it's like following someone's life in a non-social media way through their work. Really cool.
Yeah, kind of voyeuristic.
Mm-hmm.
Could this be made by the host of the Doug Wright Awards?
It certainly was. I think he talks about that in that book, actually. Or maybe
he does? He talks about the Doug Wright Awards?
Not the ones that we went to, but I think...
Well, here he is. Here he is.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah, anyway, we're talking about, like, Autobio stuff. Yeah. Sort of the theme here.
That's right. I love Dustin Harbin. He's hilarious. We're in Canada, we're in Toronto, and he starts the Doug Wright Awards by saying, well, you've invited an American here to tell you about your culture. Yeah. I just thought, what a great way to start hosting something.
Yeah.
Really funny.
Dustin's stuff is really great, and I just think it's like really heartwarming and really like... Another combination, I think, his style is much more cartoony, obviously, than Carl's.
Yeah,
but
I love this, though.
He also does an incredible balance, I think, of like these sort of goofy things that happened and then these longer moments of sort of reflecting and kind of pondering the bigger moments.
How much do we know about Koyama Press? Because from my understanding, they have been like a huge pillar of support in the comics community for a long time.
Yeah, Annie Koyama is a wonderful, incredible, tremendous person.
I really would love to meet them. I've never met them.
Yeah, so there's an incredible interview. I can give this to you in one of the comics journal things that were most recently. Has a great overview of her kind of life and career.
So cool.
Koyama Press, she just closed up shop and now has become Koyama Gives, which is like
a grant thing, right?
A grant giving thing for smaller projects and stuff. But Koyama Press published some really incredible books, both big and small. And she's someone, I think she worked in marketing, she worked in commercials and stuff like that, and then decided, to kind of invest some of her profits, I guess, in this medium. It's just a thing that she's always been interested in. She's not a comics maker. But just a wonderful, genuine, kind person.
And imagine how many comics are made because of her.
Yeah.
Right?
And
so,
I know,
in a way, like, definitely a comics maker, like a facilitator.
Mm-hmm. And I think there are several people who kind of credit her with kind of allowing them to have the career that they have. I know DeForge is kind of like the biggest example.
That's amazing.
She was such an early supporter of his work.
That's so special.
Yeah, she's a really incredible person. I've interacted with her a couple times. She's super, super nice.
I'd love to do a show on all Koyama books and just see
we should.
What we could see there.
That's a good idea. I have a fair amount of them. She also has great taste. It's one of those things where the only through line to what she publishes is her name. It's not the same as like Hollow Press where it's all fitting this sort of like dungeon theme or something like that. Sure,
there's no like aesthetic criteria.
But it somehow fits because if you see the name on it, like you kind of know it's going to be legit.
Interesting. I think that happens a lot where it's like if one person is seeking out the books, then it has a certain taste level that you can trust, and there is some common thread, and at least in its excellence.
This is also a Koyama book.
Oh, so we have another book, and that's Eleanor Davis, right?
Yeah.
I love their art. Their art's so cool.
Incredible.
I have How to Be Happy, which is like a color book, and I think I have one other one too.
Yeah. So there's also, everyone does this incredible like caricature of Annie. She always looks pissed, but she's like the nicest person in the world. But yeah, this Eleanor Davis book chronicles a trip from, where's she going?
It kind of, I wonder how much like Eleanor Davis is in a dialogue with Leona Fink,
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. But Tucson, Arizona to Athens, Georgia is the bike ride, and it's all chronicled.
Wow. I used to live in Tucson for 6 months.
Really?
Yeah.
Doing what?
It's a long story. We'll tell it some other time.
Okay.
You might see it in my Autobio comic.
Oh, interesting.
That's why we did this, right? We were thinking about what show to do next, and I was like, I want to learn more about Autobio stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's when you mentioned you wanted to do an Autobio episode, I was like, I don't really like Autobio. I don't have that much stuff, and I pulled out this huge stack.
You got 20 plus books. You're like, I guess I do have some stuff.
This book I think is really special. It has like such a spontaneous quality to it, and I know she was drawing, or they were drawing it as they were traveling on the trip.
So it's like a journal comic almost.
Totally, and I think while I was reading, I reread this last night, and while I was reading, I was thinking that I kind of like Autobio stuff maybe more without panels. It feels almost like more
interesting,
observational, or more journal-like.
And I guess the flow, too, feels more like life, right? There's no borders on your life. So there's like no liminal space necessarily. And so this way, we get that flow of like one event into the other. And it feels like we're living it.
Yeah, there's no increments.
I like that.
And there are a couple just like spectacular, like full pages.
I love the drawings; they're wonderful.
Oh, they're so great. And then they'll hit like this one space of like my knees were in pain, and I hung out in this bar, and I drew the whole thing.
I love that.
And didn't say anything about it. Just here's a silent.
I love that
kind of treatise on or treatment of like where I was in that moment.
I do also really like when people include the price of a thing, because it's like a moment in time. Like when I go get a pizza, it's $40 for a pizza.
Jesus
$40
Christ.
for a pizza. And I'm like, wait, what? Does it come with a stack of magazines or something? Like, do I
the way that would make it an okay price. If it comes with like stacks of old magazines.
At least I'm getting a value. Like, I just want
what magazine would be ideal?
If I want to pay $40, I want to get some some newsprint.
Get a bunch of old Maxim
comics
magazines.
Or something. Yeah, Maxim. Highlights for children, please.
Yeah,
we'll do the find the 7 differences between these pictures.
Like, so there's this. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's an incredible sequence where she comes across a person there, she's down along the southern edge of the United States, and so there's a lot of border talk and border patrol and stuff. And I think this page especially is just like, there's no planning this drawing out.
Right.
But it's the perfect gesture. That person scratching their head under their hat, but the hat's lifted up a little bit. This jackass border patrol guy kind of shrugging the whole thing off, and this contrasted with this incredibly serious moment. This whole sequence is like really spectacular. Cool. And then there's these wonderful there's a double spread in here. I kept thinking too, would this have worked better as a photo essay or as I've read some Paul Theroux travel books and stuff, and I was thinking what's the difference between drawing an experience and writing about it, or actually photographing and capturing the thing. There's one huge vista here where it's at first I was why draw this? No, I'm not gonna be able to find it.
It's a large landscape,
yeah, it's a huge landscape that you could never fully capture it in a photo anyway. So I was thinking the drawing is so cool because you're looking at
bridge.
No, it's they're standing looking over something. But this drawing is so cool because you're not looking at the thing itself. You're looking through the person's experience looking at the thing.
Right. Yeah.
You're you're almost looking through their eyes.
It's interesting because whenever you whip out your phone to photograph anything natural,
this is a good example.
It doesn't photograph well. The moon always looks super far away.
Totally.
It looks way closer in person, way better in person.
Oh, this is it. This is what I was thinking.
Cool. Yeah.
So
wow, endless fields.
Endless fields, pouring a lot of not a ton of detail, but the exact perfect right amount of detail.
This kind of reminds me of Matsumoto a little bit.
Yeah, actually, totally.
Yeah.
That's kind of scratchy, loose, but completely energetic lines.
Yeah, and this is the line that I've just been infatuated with lately.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since I was reading that number 5 that you gave me, it's so good. We'll talk about number 5 at some point, but I've been
a good comparison.
I've been enchanted by the lines, and that's probably why I'm reacting so well to all this too. It's it's so lovely.
Yeah, and so this to me, this drawing feels bigger than a photograph.
Right.
If it was a picture, it'd be
this could go on forever.
That's a landscape, whatever. And this, for some reason, this just feels enormous to me.
It's because there's no panel borders. That's why.
Yeah,
because it's a full bleed.
Yeah,
then
and you always know the edge of the
your
photograph.
Imagination goes on forever.
That's possible. Yeah, it's inviting you into viewing the.
It's beautiful.
Experience.
This book rules.
Oh, it's great. Actually, I got this at TCAF whenever it came out. That was the first time I went to TCAF.
Whoa! What year was that?
I read it on
2017.
Yeah, I read it on the plane. It made me cry.
Oh,
beautiful.
That's awesome. I brought this one. Speaking of crying,
yeah.
I brought this Monsters by Ken Dahl.
Gross.
Well, it's for the people who have had it worse, and guess what? It's about herpes. And
this is autobiographical.
It's autobio, absolutely, because the character in this gives it to their partner, and then their partner finds out they have it. They didn't know they had it. Then they break up, and then they go through a life trying to be celibate, right? And it's not working. And they
they have herpes?
Yeah, they just feel like an alien. They don't know what to do. They obsess about giving it to people, being contagious. They have all these homemade remedies. They have to constantly ignore people who want to spend time with them because they don't want to be contagious. They actually, they mess up. They hate themselves. They educate themselves.
I love the letter.
I mean, this book is fantastic. It's so good. It's so human and so disgusting, and so real. I mean, they talk about it here. Here he's talking about how all of his different kind of cures, whether
tinctures
they're tinctures, yeah, exactly, whether they're homeopathic or weird chemicals, and just trying to figure out how to be in the world, working and living. And it's so good. And essentially it's this whole thing of coming to terms with having this incurable contagious disease, and it's very human. It's very upsetting at times, and it's just so well drawn. I mean, the art
just on a technical level, it's
unbelievable.
It has that kind of fleshy realness, but also cartoon.
I mean, look at how this character feels. They're talking to people, and it's just this is how they feel. Yeah. And it's so intense. I mean,
this is another kind of thing that doesn't work in any other medium. If you saw a TV show where someone looked like that, you'd be like, that's dumb. Right? That's too much. But in a drawing, it makes sense because the drawing is being drawn in a certain way to suit a purpose.
And they're changing, and they morph into the monster that they feel like they are.
Yeah.
There's so many great allegories here. There's especially with there's one where they actually depict themselves as a monster. Oh yeah, like as a vampire,
as like Nosferatu.
Yeah, as like
Self.
Nosferatu,
Yeah.
like watching, like, you know, feeling like an outsider when everybody is like these movie star types, right? And like moving through through the sewers.
That's great. Wow, this is
Yeah.
what a page.
It's so fantastic.
It's like Al Jaffe and also like Sergio Aragonés.
Aragonés, yeah.
And all
Another
others.
Arizona reference here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I guess they lived in New York in the beginning of this, and then they move. Yeah, see, there's our city right there.
Where everyone has herpes.
Yeah, 2002. Yeah, 2002, and then they go to Arizona and they move, and then end up moving back to Honolulu. So,
where no one has herpes.
I mean, who knows? According to this book, it's like 1 in every 4 people have it.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Damn, that's
but
wild.
really, really amazing, and yeah,
It's like that's so raw too, and that's also a wild thing to be like. I have this thing that makes me uncomfortable.
Secret Acres put this out.
No, sick. Like I have this thing that makes me uncomfortable that I don't want people to know about, and I hide from everyone because it makes me feel disgusting, gross, and terrible. So, this thing I don't want anyone to know about, I'm gonna put it in a book.
Yeah,
I'm gonna publish
exactly.
it for everyone to see.
I often think, part of what I want to do is investigate Autobio for my own purposes, like so that when I make mine, I can do it with more reference and reverence to the stuff that came before. And, you know, investigating it is that it's like people work through their stuff. Part of it's therapy.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to tell
that's true.
anybody that I have this thing, but I'm going to work through it here and I'm going to get it all out of my system because otherwise my mind would explode. You know?
And maybe this is after they had, come to terms with it a little bit. Like, I wonder how much of this was made while it was going on, or how much is kind of reflecting on it afterwards.
It's fantastic. It's a really great. It's very educational as well.
I was going to say, it also looks
information.
It's like a science book. Almost.
It really is. Yeah, it does have an educational component. It has an autobiographical component. It obviously does the cartoony thing, which is like, their cartooning is amazing. Like just this page alone, dealing with the public.
Yeah.
This reads like the best undergrounds, but with modern like quippy dialogue that I love. Like they're like wheat-free waffles, hold the tofu whip, and then like over here it's like which of your vegan cakes are easiest to purge, and then they're like, is your tempeh cruelty-free? Like it's like if you've ever dealt with the public, this is exactly what it's like.
Totally. That's also like a very Mad Magazine thing to do, where there's no main character in the panel, just everyone's talking
and they're all asking inane questions that drive you crazy.
Yeah.
Look at this cartooning. Amazing.
That's fantastic.
So good.
And the mixture of styles here too is varied, but also like all works together really well.
It's pretty masterful.
Wow, I've never really spent any time with this book.
I think this book flies under the radar, 1, because of the subject matter, and 2, just because I think if I'm understanding the author well from their work, they kind of internalize and disappear. Like they have like an avoidant personality, I think. Because this book talks about how the character, just leaves and is like, I gotta go figure it out on my own, essentially.
Right.
And does it several times, moves and moves and moves and moves and moves. And I, as somebody who's moved like 30 or 40 times myself, it's really traumatic to move.
Yeah, even down the street.
You think it's gonna like fix things, but it actually stirs up its own nest of trauma that you have to like digest and process. It's really difficult
because it's like a breakup kind of. It's like an end of something and a start of something else.
Absolutely.
It's like a period of reevaluation.
And that's what my New York diary would be about. It'd be about me moving 30 to 40 times in New York City, which is what I've done. I've had to move like at least 30, like not exaggerating, like that many times.
Is that what you're thinking as like a framework for
I don't know. It's definitely something I want to touch upon because it is so difficult to do.
Yeah.
And it's akin, they say like moving it's up there, right? It's up there with the most stressful events in your life, akin to like a divorce or what was the other thing they said? Or like a major breakup or something.
Maybe.
Yeah. But like that, right? Like, something really intense like that, like a divorce or whatever.
Especially if it's out of your control. Especially in New York, I think people who don't live in New York or don't live in incredibly expensive, insane cities, they don't realize that sometimes moving is not a choice.
Right.
And so that's right. Something happens to your living space, or you can't afford it anymore, or your landlord sells it out from under you, or your super sucks and your basement floods and
Totally.
like there's all these I've got insect infestation or something.
Or you just get kicked out.
Or you just get kicked out, right?
Yeah.
Or your roommates leave, or like,
Yeah, I had
whatever,
one. I had somebody go, "Oh, you know what? I really liked you as a roommate, but my sister's coming back into town. And she's going to take your room."
Oh man.
And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, sorry, you're cool. Nothing wrong with you, but you got to go. You got 30 days." And I was like, "Jeez." That was the second time. First time it was like, "Oh, this building's going condo. Sorry."
Yeah.
So we got to leave. And I was like, "They bought us all out." I was like, "Well, not me. I just lived here subletting."
Yeah.
Anyway, we don't. This book is unbelievable.
I've actually never read that one.
This really, when I picked this up from Desert Island, Gabe was like, "Yeah, that's the one to start with," and I was like, "Oh, cool, thanks,
I can see
Gabe."
it says a Gabe like
This is fantastic. Yeah, this is so good, and it really does.
I almost wish it was bigger.
Here's the thing: we talk about New York a lot because it's all up in our face all the time. Mm-hmm. You don't have to move to New York. You can just read this book
to have the
and get the
experience.
vibe. Yeah, exactly. Well, I show this to students all the time, and I'm like, look at how she fills everything. Look at how she uses black. Look at how she leaves. Everything is texture. It has a touch of the pen. That's really important to bring your substrates, like your surfaces, to life. Mm-hmm. And even there, like,
and the
that's
fabric too.
so
the
nice.
The fabric, the textures, yeah, it's beautiful.
And it's wonderfully written. Like, you see her making mistakes. She's not afraid to like unabashedly show you all the terrible guys that she's like had to deal with, who like it was exciting at first, and then you realize like he's a substance abuser and he's selling all your stuff. Right. Like talk about like a hard knock experience through New York. Oh, yeah. Take a look at this.
Incredible clarity to this too, despite all the information in each panel.
Yeah, it has a lot of visual information, but it all works.
It reads really well.
It works in conjunction,
You know what I think part of that stuff is a thing I really want to work on, which is keeping characters kind of the same size in certain, maybe not all the time, but in certain sequences. Like I'm always thinking, I think I was like poisoned by that was that Wally Wood's like 12 panels that always work
22 panels.
22 panels,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
I'm always thinking of like also that feedback page of Alex Toth talking to somebody else. He's always like, every page has to have like some feet on the ground and has to have whatever. Like I think
there's a lot of old hard talking old timers that are like, you gotta do comics this way.
But I think some of that stuff kind of like poisoned my brain at a young age, where I'm like, I need variation on the page, and every panel's got to be wildly different. But stuff like this, especially if there's a ton of detail on it, like if there were zoom close-ups and wide shots and all this stuff, it wouldn't work because there'd be too much shit going on. Your brain would be like, I don't know what the fuck's going on.
I also like that this type of panel transition where you're saying the similar compositions or similar size when it's a conversation. Yeah. Because then it's quick. Your eye's not trying to digest a whole new scene in each panel, so you can follow the dialogue as if it were exchanging one for one, like you do when you talk to people.
Totally, and you don't need that movie thing of like shot reverse shot in comics. I think some people make that. Myself, I make that mistake all the time. Like you don't have to have one person talking, next person talking, one person talking. You don't have to go back and forth because you don't need to edit in that same way. It's why they're different mediums. We should do a whole episode on the differences of film and
I would like to do some of that stuff too, because I think it's helpful when you're first starting to do those kind of things, because like, okay, if you're an accomplished cartoonist that just draws this way, then great, you're good. You don't need any, tips or you don't need any direction. You're already doing it. But if you don't know what to do and you're just starting off with, it can get same, and that's I think like that's a neophyte, like a common occurrence. When you're first starting, you do the same panel on the whole page, right? Yeah. And that's where I think what you're talking about when you get the advice, like, you got to change it up, you got to vary it. That's where that comes from. It's like a response to like student work, essentially, right?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you do change it.
Yeah, but it just results in pages that like are just there's no reason to be doing what you're doing other than to mix it up. So it's like if it's like a 6-panel page and you're like this reads so well, but if I'm thinking like one of the panels on the page has to be a close-up, one has to be a group shot, one has to have feet on the ground, one needs to be a shot without a face, one needs to be setting shot, and one needs to be like action or something. Then suddenly you're forcing all these weird rules onto a setting in a situation where they don't make any sense.
And that comes out of the hero books. That all comes out of trying to sell whip bang, zip pop and pow books to kids.
Totally. But I mean, the counterpoint to that is when it's done well, it's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Like when that kind of page of mixing up the point of view is working for the scene, it's so dynamic and so fun.
Yeah.
But it's not necessary unless the situation requires it, I think. But recognizing that is like a tricky thing.
So this book is great, and I haven't read a ton. I mean, I've seen some of the dirty plot stuff, but those issues are a little out of my price range at the moment, you know? I know they recollected it
There's a massive,
times.
there's a huge book collection of it.
I'm kind of just full on books at the moment, so I gotta like do a purge before I get more.
Yeah, wait, hang on.
You
There's
have
another.
Time Zone J, right?
Yeah, I have this other book. This was actually the first, you say, book that I read.
And
This
that
was
came
like,
out recently, right?
Yeah,
Within
this
the
came out
past
last.
few years?
I got this last year. Ducey's
Cool,
been
I
like
love the rot ring on the
yeah, it's sick.
cover.
Her work has been a huge blank spot of mine, and I just heard so many people speak so highly of this book.
I haven't seen this yet.
It's
I mean,
cool.
I flipped through it, but I haven't got it yet. I haven't read it.
I have a minor complaint with how it's printed that I don't really understand.
Is it printed on the folded pages?
It's printed on the folded pages, and so when you
strange.
bend it, it flips in a weird way, and that's a tiny thing. Whatever.
This, you know, we were just looking at Colette, like Juliette Colette's work, and I see that there's like a dialogue here.
Totally, I think it would be easy to say that she's like copying her, but I don't think that's really true.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
No, I know. I've heard other people say that, and
I see.
I think it's bullshit.
Yeah, no, I think they're each their own person, but I'm just saying I see them having a conversation.
Yeah. So the gimmick of this book is that it reads from the bottom up because that's how it was drawn.
Oh my god.
Because like whatever's in the foreground
I
is
see.
first. So like if you're just drawing this pen to pencil, whatever's in front is going to be at the bottom.
Kind of interesting because as soon as you said that, I saw the book differently. But I also like my storyteller alarms are going off. Being like, I'm going to challenge the reader to read from the bottom to the top.
Yeah. So,
I mean, that's something that's heavily ingrained. I mean, I have difficulty flipping it even when I know that I'm reading manga. Like, I got to go, oh, yeah, I'm going right to left. You know, I have to remind myself all the time.
yeah.
So
it's
how
cool.
did you find the reading experience?
So I really think this book is one of those things where I'm like, this is really cool, and I'm glad it exists, and I'm glad it's gotten so much attention. It's not, for me, super fun to read. And I don't know if it's meant to be fun. Fun's probably the wrong word. But it's like...
I mean, you're allowed to have fun.
It's overwhelming. And I think we've made this comparison before. Like,
It feels really claustrophobic.
I like abrasive music, well, sometimes, but not all the time.
It's about timing, right?
And there always has to be something for me to kind of hang on to there, and this book has a little bit of like a drone to it that I found myself picking up and reading like 2 or 3 pages at a time, and then stopping, and then picking it up like 2 weeks later, and
It's very
glancing at it.
intense.
But if you think of it as like a sketchbook or a journal, and stop trying to kind of like be linear about it, it's a lot more fun. So since I've read this,
just open it up.
I've picked it up probably 10 times to a random page and just be like, oh, that's sweet.
That's
oh,
what's
that drawing
up.
fucking
Yeah,
rules.
totally.
Oh, yeah. And so there's all this great stuff to pour through in it if you think of it as a sketchbook book,
Interesting.
rather than a linear story. And it's not entirely linear anyway.
Sure.
And this is a lot of memory stuff, so it's
Interesting.
like
Cool.
it's remembering things, so it's not meant to be totally linear, and their brain jumps around.
That makes
a little
way
bit.
more sense then, because it does look like, you know, your memories are clouded often.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I read it through the first time and I was like, wow, that was a lot. But I really find myself thinking about it a lot and going back to it pretty often. And I think it'll age really well.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
I was just unwrapping this beast, and so I got all excited about it.
Tell us about this.
So this is Justin Green, and many people would say that Justin Green invented Autobio. A lot of people would claim that we have the father of the format right here. And this is one of their giant books on newsprint.
I have the opinion that all comics should be this size.
This is so satisfying to look through, and I'm so glad I got the newsprint version. I mean, it's so wonderful. I've heard
Where did you get this?
I honestly, someone gave me an Amazon gift card.
Oh, that's right.
And I don't normally order my books through there, but I had this thing, and I'm like, what am I going to get? And I saw that they had this Justin Green book for $12.95.
It was like a person selling this.
It was just like a person selling it. So I was like, okay. I didn't know I was getting the newsprint one. I thought I was just going to get like a crappy reprint. I just wanted to read it.
No, this is sweet.
And then this showed up, and I was like, hello. It's beautiful.
So what's Justin Green's deal? Like, what's this book about? Have you read it yet?
Well, no, I haven't. I just got this.
Oh, nice.
But, you know, Justin has this character, Binky Brown, right? And Binky Brown is essentially like, you know, a stand-in for him in the Binky Brown and the Virgin Mary, that one, you know, with the really famous cover with like the Virgin Mary that's like in the burning flames and everything.
Yeah.
In that one, he's like receiving sexual impulses, electrical signals from like statues and inanimate objects, and he's running around like essentially dealing with mental illness.
Yeah.
Right? And so I imagine that this will be a continuation of similar themes.
Interesting. Is this a prose story? What is this?
I don't know. Let's check it out. When I saw that Married to Comics documentary. Have you seen that?
Oh, no, you were telling me about that.
Yeah, so it's about Justin Green and Carol Tyler.
You said it at CXC?
Yeah, and, they did a really good job of not weaponizing his mental illness. When they portrayed him in the film, you could see where he was, like, being part of conspiracy theory, Facebook groups and stuff, and you could see that and you kind of go, but the filmmaker never, like, used it as a weapon. They never harangued it. Never made like it wasn't like it wasn't like opportunistic in that way. It didn't feel like exploitative. Yeah, exactly right. Like he didn't do any of that, which I thought was really skillful, and I appreciated that.
Nice.
But it was really hard to see.
Crowded but perfect.
So great. Yeah, these are all this. One thing I've heard said about Justin Green is that their drawing style stays pretty much consistent throughout their whole career. They don't really change. That all the same kind of compositions and the same kind of line work and the same use of black and the same level of cartooniness kind of stay pretty consistent throughout. Also, he did a sign painting comic that was in a trade magazine called Signs of the Times.
Whoa.
And it was just like
Was he a sign painter also?
Yeah, he was a sign painter. Cool. And it was educational. It was like how to be a sign painter.
Oh, that's sweet. With like the stick you hold to
exactly.
Yeah.
I really want to get my hands on those.
There's a documentary. Have you seen? I think it's called Sign Painters.
Oh, cool.
It's short. And it's not like super in-depth.
I wanted to try my hand at sign painting for some time.
Me too. Look at this.
I didn't
know
that.
This as, I made a gift for Christina, but I bought some enamel paint.
Ooh,
so
nice.
If you want to play around, we should play around with this a little bit. And
I don't have the brushes though.
I do.
Oh, you do? Those big long brushes?
I got a couple. What are they called? Filberts? Or these?
They're like really long.
Yeah, these like long,
yeah.
kind of ones. Yeah, so I did a little practice with it.
They have even longer ones.
Pretty good.
Where the wood part is only about as long as your finger, and you hold it like this, and it has a real long one, and you like whap the paint on. Oh, you know.
I went down the rabbit hole, and like all my YouTube recommendations for like a month and a half was just all sign painting videos.
So I really recommend, if you're interested in Justin Green, to check out the Married to Comics documentary. It portrays Justin's relationship with Carol Tyler.
Cool.
And all of their kind of comics exploits, and it shows their life and kind of the ups and downs and the difficulty of being a cartoonist. But I definitely wanted to bring this by because I've just gotten it, and I wanted to see, I wanted to take a look into something that, the father of Autobio comics here.
What's this like butt face guy?
I don't know, yeah.
Is that him? Is that like the surrogate Justin Green?
I have no idea what's going on in this.
I saw that earlier. I was like,
he has neurosis on his. He might be.
Is it just like a punk rock?
He might be an avatar of Neurosis.
Oh, I was thinking like Neurosis the band.
They're
like a metal band.
Yeah, I have no idea. Let's see. That's funny. Imaginary brother. Yeah, so he's like an imaginary character of Neurosis. Yeah.
Our space.
Yeah, he really does. Unbelievable.
Garth Ennis.
Anyway,
Garth Ennis must have read some Justin Green.
Yeah, right. He got some influence there.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about this book a little bit. This Carnet book, which I guess in France, the Carnet is like a pretty common thing. Like they publish these for illustrators all the time. It's like the sketchbook zine idea, I guess.
Oh,
but it's a book.
Oh, I see.
And so he was traveling he was researching that book Habibi, which whatever. Craig Thomas' comics are not totally for me. I don't have any beef with them or anything, but his comics are not totally my vibe. But I love the way he draws. It's all brush to paper for the most part, very little sketching. And this is just a document of traveling around. I guess he goes to like Marrakesh and stuff, researching things for this book. And I actually just think this is far more interesting than the book. I think like his kind of narrative he grafts onto these experiences is a little like, I don't know, white guy traveling around in an area trying to process that a little bit. But this book actually kind of delves into that experience a little bit more in a way that the fiction book does not.
I see.
City scenes, especially the crowd scenes and everything, like they have a really lived in, like, tactile feel to them.
I mean, it's beautifully drawn. Absolutely.
And this book is not like whiny at all, which I think it could be because he does get like a stomach illness and stuff at one point. Actually, that part's really great. He like cartoonifies his like diarrhea monster.
Oh, it's like our guy Ken Dahl from making the monster out of their movies.
Totally. Sorry, I'm flipping through this real quick, but like all these patterns and stuff are really sweet.
Yeah, I mean the architectural drawings are really strong.
Yeah,
I love this too, and I love when they use it like out of panel. They'll use the architecture as the panel. That's a real like Will Eisner trope.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So is this an Autobio comic or a journal? Is there a difference? Does it matter?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean,
There's comic-ish stuff in here.
What are things about Autobio that you think work well? I mean, I guess we're showing some of that now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was going through this stuff earlier this week when I realized I had a lot of it, and kind of trying to compartmentalize it a little bit. And I think some of it is kind of like a category could be like documenting something sort of as it's happening, and that's kind of like the journal sort of diary version of the autobiography. So like this is actual comics, right? So there are comics in here. Which this would fall into, which I think like the Eleanor Davis book falls into that category, and really trying to like capture things moment to moment. And then I think there's another version of this. Where's the diarrhea monster? I really want to see that.
I mean, that's what we're here for. We're here for the diarrhea monster. Well, that looks like
that's a Charles
Burns.
Charles Burns drawing.
Oh, okay.
And then there's another.
He's got other artists drawing in here.
Yeah, so he goes. I think he goes to Angoulême, or he goes to.
Cool.
He goes to something in.
I want to go to Angoulême so bad.
And then, like every Craig Thompson book, it's about like meeting hot babes.
Whoa. See, yeah. So I don't know if
fucking diarrhea. Anyway, then there's another category of like responding to something after it's happened, or thinking back on things and reflecting on them.
Sure.
And then drawing.
Oh, like having already processed it, or
I guess. Well, so like.
I guess my question is more like less about what types of autobio stuff there is, and like more about what we think works in autobio. Like, what are some things that don't work? Like, what to memory? Like, what about an autobio? Like, if it's too navel gazily, right? Like, if it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, how do you pull off a skillful autobio? Is my question. You know?
I mean, I think like a lot of things, you just have to be like a cool, funny, interesting person.
Oh, so just those things. Then.
Well, okay. So the thing I think doesn't work the most,
it's personality.
Autobio comics about making comics. Not for
you.
Yeah. Because it's like all these things of like, and then I tried to make another comic. It's so hard.
It's so niche.
Where do the ideas come from?
It's so niche.
Why am I cursed with having to do this?
People talk a lot about where ideas come from. Do you notice that? Like, that's usually the first question I get from somebody who doesn't make drawings or like isn't in a creative pursuit.
Well, people
like,
want to
where
feel
do
like
ideas come from?
They want to feel like there's an answer. They want to feel like there's there's a catch-all, there's a tutorial.
Like there's one way.
Yeah, there's a thing. If they just do all the right things, they'll become a cool, funny, interesting, creative person.
What I think is so funny too is like every single creative person wildly different. They're all just wildly different.
Totally.
There's like no one recipe. It's like everyone is just like this bouquet of flowers, like from all over the place, and it's totally unique, totally fun. Creative people are cagey and weird and wonderful. This book I brought, I own some original art from this book actually.
Oh, sweet.
This is Gabby Schultz is Sick.
Cool.
And I brought this because it's definitely autobio adjacent. It's about just getting sick. I mean, look at that watercolor.
Wow, that is a gross room.
It just says once I got sick.
Is this also New York?
This has got to be New York. I mean, these corners.
No one lives like that voluntarily.
Nobody does that on purpose. Yeah, real sick, right? So they're puking blood and they go to the doctor, and it basically turns into a fever dream where they go through their childhood and then they go through current America. Yeah. So these
creatures are
so they do this kind of like they send up the whole American way of life, and this is so good. Yeah, this is such a good book, and essentially they're saying American culture is a death cult.
Okay.
And they're not wrong.
I don't disagree.
It's a death cult. It absolutely is. And it has its own mythology.
Oh, this rules.
I know. It's so good.
The contrast here is awesome.
This is, again, and this is the page that I actually have.
Nice.
I have this page at home.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy. I love buying original art. I wish I could afford more of it.
Yeah, since you mentioned that to me, I was like, damn, why don't I ask people like that at shows? I want to see their sketchbook comics and their zines and stuff. I never asked if they have original pages, because I saw my original pages, not comic pages, but drawings for like $20-$30.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not famous. And
I'll have a big, because I'm cleaning out my studios, I'll have a big thing of original drawings at the next couple shows where it's called a mystery box.
Yeah.
You can come put your hand in the mystery box for $20 and pull out what you pull.
You might get,
and see what you get.
You might get a comic page. You might get spaghetti and eyeballs.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. You might get like a doodle. You might get a mythic rare drawing.
Oh, I was thinking you should put like things that aren't drawings in there.
Oh yeah. Well, you'd know.
What's like
just paper though. Come on.
Like the peeled grapes.
Yeah.
Thing.
Peeled grapes. Exactly. Yeah, that's right. This book is very, very good. If
That's
you
so
haven't if you haven't gotten your eyes on this, check it out. It's awesome.
So something I was going to say is a thing that doesn't work for me in Autobiographics is complaining, which I think is just a thing I don't deal with in real life in general, in anything. I just don't like people who complain about stuff. But this book looks like it's making a point, right?
Yeah.
It's not just like, I'm sick. It's
Yeah.
like, it's using that as a platform to extrapolate this idea. But Autobiographics that are like, day 7, still have a fever in my room. I'm eating some soup at the end. And I don't want to read that.
Yeah, I think I can safely say that Gabby's personality is very intense, but they're also very intelligent. And they have an overactive mind. But that's part of what makes their comics so cool. That's part of what their personality that makes their comics so insightful.
Yeah, and so expressive. Like, they're not just
Yeah.
writing it in tiny boxes. They're visualizing this, they're illustrating these feelings.
I mean, this thing's amazing.
I mean, this book looks incredible.
It's so good.
I've never seen this before.
And it has like I see the Watterson here. I mean, maybe just the watercolor is making me think that, but these expressive open panels, the big like thick brush lines.
I was gonna say earlier. I mean, I know
a lot of this is thin, but you know what I'm saying.
I know what you mean. Looking at this earlier, I know like Dave Sim is like the person's name we're not supposed to say or whatever. But like just from a raw,
I just think if you're like, you don't have to say anything. He's saying everything that you need to know about him.
Yeah, totally. But like this kind of lettering and stuff, like Dave Sim's lettering on those pages, regardless of whether he's saying like the most insane thing in the world or not, just visually, technically, is amazing. Like the mixture of of emphasis.
Somebody who likes to do lettering,
right? And it's a thing that I wish more artists did, which is like you treat the lettering on the page as part of the art. Fair. And so, like, if you're
but lettering's very difficult, so it's not like it comes super easy to everyone, and they struggle with it. True. And that's why you don't get as much like expressiveness with it because they're just trying to print legible.
Right, but the thing I really don't like is like the Ames guide and stuff. It's like making everything's got to be perfect and it's ruled out and everything.
I agree.
And fonts, like, forget about it. I hate fonts.
No. Never put a font in.
But this is great because it's like and it switches from scene to scene. This is some like gothic looking.
And this is exactly what they're saying: the creation of the myth that creates the death cult.
Yeah, and then to have dialogue, going back to this page here, to have the dialogue be more varied, right? Because when someone's narrating, there might be bold, there might be small, but when someone's talking, they're going up, they're going down, they're fast or slow or whatever. The balloon changes, right?
Absolutely. And again, this reminds me of Eisner. This, like, these open pages, like, with no panel borders, and the really expressive and well-drawn figures. This reminds me of the way Eisner does his graphic novels. Like, the large drawing with the floating inset panels. Yeah. Just these beautiful illustrations. I mean, so nice.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel too try-hardy, like someone's really trying to pull out every trick of the book just for the hell of it. Like, it all feels really purposeful and intentional.
Yeah, they're well considered, their work. And just like, have you ever had a fever that you've had fever dreams? Have you ever had that happen to you?
I mean, I've had dreams while I've had a fever. I don't know if they've had this kind of an impact on it. I'm not sure. I wouldn't be able to make a whole book out of it.
Right. I mean, yeah, fair. But I mean, if you've ever had that fever dream where you're not sure what's real, that's a very scary place to be. And I've had that happen to me. It is weird, man. It's like you're living 1 foot in the world and 1 foot out of it. It's very strange. So I see how, I like things that are based on dream too. I really do. We should do one that's all episode of stories based on dreams.
Yeah.
That'd be really fun.
Well, dreams are tricky because, like, I mean, by the time they get to the page, they're 3 or 4 or 5 steps removed.
You got to write them down right when you wake up.
Yeah, even that though is like it's a step beyond what actually you experience.
I had a dream that my partner, even though I told her not to, was cleaning the window outside of our high-rise apartment. We don't live in a high-rise. It's a dream.
Of your penthouse
But she's
apartment.
on a ladder that she tied to the window, and then she just falls.
Oh God!
And then I watch her just fall, and then the wind picks her up and carries her back to the window, and I grab her and pull her inside. And it was like traumatic.
That's
it was so intense.
Wait, I have one more I wanted to look at.
What a weird dream that was.
Or however many. So this one I think is really interesting. Thomas Campbell,
cool.
Comics blogger, turned me onto this book. It's Yours by Sarah Farrick.
I like the cover.
And this is, I guess, falls into the category of like retroactively pondering experiences, and it's extremely poetic. Anyway, you should flip through this book because you haven't seen it before. But it's like, I don't even know if this is comics. That was part of like the conversation he and I were having about it. But it is definitely, it's autobiographical, and it's a wild book, and it's a weird experience to read. it's almost more typographical than.
I see. Yeah, this is
comic-y.
this feels like something I would see at the art book fair.
Yeah, which is not typically on my radar. I only picked it up because it was recommended to me, which is a thing I love. Like when someone recommends something to me that I would ordinarily pass by, and I end up really liking it.
Yeah. So what story is it telling?
I think it has a little bit of like, there's some kind of like sexual assault there. There's some weird like questionable relationship stuff in here. There's some like kind of body, I don't know if I say it's body horror, but like experience. It's very body oriented, which I think is really interesting because there's very few people
bodies
in it.
yeah.
There are very few drawings of people in it, but it is so expressive.
Interesting.
And it's almost like using typography and wild.
Yeah.
We were just talking about, it reminded me of like we were talking about lettering and stuff, and like it's the way the things are written that tells the story more so than like illustrations specifically.
And this dancing words, like these dancing words kind of flitting across the pages, are interesting.
Yeah, they're wild. And I think this was originally published as separate zines and then bundled together, which it's hard to tell if they were conceived as one whole thing or not, but they work really well as a book. It's an experience for sure, and unlike any other book I've really read in this world. It's published by 2D Cloud, which I know also is having some cancellation.
This is a 2D Cloud.
Some cancellation
Oh,
issues,
my
which is
goodness.
weird.
2D Cloud.
But that book is really, really
More
neat.
like 2D Cloud.
2D.
I don't really know anything about it. I just, from what I hear on the wires.
It's all rumors and everything.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's pretty wild. Well, I'm good if you are.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good overview. Wait, do you want to tell us what you have in mind, or you want to keep it to yourself?
Well, the reason why I called this meeting is because I just wanted to look at more autobio stuff. I wanted to talk about it with you. I'm thinking about doing an autobio piece. I had like a near-death experience when I was 21 that was really intense, and it really it altered the course of my life. But part of it, it's really hard to navigate back through trauma. It's like very difficult. And there's all types of like exposure therapies and different like, cognitive retraining around these subjects. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is I just wanted to look at more autobio comics, and I wanted to start a conversation because I feel like this is how I learn. I learn best when I'm looking at the books, talking about them with people who have opinions that I trust. And so, educating myself through seeing the books and looking at them, comparing them. But yeah, I mean, I did a short autobio in the back of Island 13.
Yeah, I read it. It's great.
And it's a pretty, you can see a little Gabby in it, I think. When I drew it.
Actually, now that you mention it.
When I drew it, I had the jelly person. It kind of came out like that. Pretty big admirer of their work. But yeah, I think, I'm struggling with how to tell the story because I think I wanted to wait until I knew what I wanted to say. Mm-hmm. But I think also I've tried a couple times, and it's like my brain doesn't want to go back there.
Sure.
And so Josh told me something really interesting, which was, well, if that's where you're at, then just make the comic about that. Make it about how your brain doesn't want to go back there. And I was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense too.
There's a little bit of that in this. There's a little bit of that in here. Is like process. Is like going through and trying to figure out how to talk about a thing that happened. It's not that heavy, but
that's what Josh's comics are about too. Like half of that comic is like a conversation that he's having with his partner Hyena, and figuring out how to tell those stories.
Yep.
So I'm still turning it over in my head, hoping that something comes out. But I know what's really happening is that because it's centered around trauma, I'm hesitant to do it in a way that's corny, that like parades it out as if there's some kind of trauma competition.
Right.
Like I'm not trying to weaponize it or like monetize it or exploit it. I just want to tell my story. So I'm trying to figure out the way that is, but also because it's centered around trauma, it comes part and parcel with procrastination. And so I know I have to kind of like fight through that, but that's why Island 14 is taking me so long to make, because I'm not really sure which way I want to go. Although
that one is going to be autobio. That one.
Well, I've turned, as of Island 13, I turned it into an anthology.
Right.
So there's 6 stories going now. And the autobio is part of it.
Okay.
And I just figure I'll put out the anthology for a while and then collect them in their own books.
Yeah.
The old
I guess one approach would be like
the old 8-ball man himself.
Whatever his name is. I guess one approach would be like, do these as short things. Think of them as snippets.
Yeah, that's
like,
what I was...
Do a chapter every issue or whatever. And then when you make it into over time, that might congeal into something more substantial and give you like momentum to work on it from there.
I think you're right.
And you can always fill in the book with extra stuff if you want to.
I think that's a really good note. I think that's just like get some stuff down on a page and then just do one page and just see where it goes.
Yeah.
But you'll be happy to know that I did start pencils on Island 14.
Sweet.
So I started with Sniffles and Toots, and so that'll be coming soon. I'll probably post it to Instagram when I'm done.
That's what I've been doing this whole time we've been recording.
Each day you've been doing what? Posting to Instagram?
Sniffling and tooting.
Yeah. You know, teaching kids, make you sick.
That's what it does.
That's what it does. Well, yeah, this was fun. We'll look at more Autobio in the future because there's a lot of it out there.
So much of it out
We're
there.
just starting, so.
But if you're making it, don't complain.
All right, toodles.
Toodles.